Hey team, this is Casey Haynes here with Movement 33, the podcast for the people. I think this is episode number 3. And we got Cody Leffler here with me, the owner of OPEX Upper Main Line. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Cody, man, just hit us with a quick, 2-minute quick information session on what OPEX is.
Yeah, so OPEX in a nutshell is individually designed fitness. What that means is ultimately, we work with every type of client, functional fitness, sport, field sport athletes, general fitness, look good, feel good, top to bottom. And every single client that we work with receives their own coach. So I have a staff of, ultimately 8 coaches, myself, my wife included, as co-owners, and each of us has a client or a caseload that we work with, and we take care of everything top to bottom, starting with a full assessment. We call that a BMW assessment, body, movement, and work, capacity expression.
You guys have, there's a machine for that, isn't it?
Yeah, so every person that comes in, we start obviously with a life coaching consultation, and what that really means is it allows us an opportunity to set up some basic lifestyle guidelines for that person, and immediately people jump right into in a fitness facility, let's get you on a nutrition program or whatever. And to a degree, we want to put an emphasis on that. But, initially what we need to do is sit down. We need to identify priorities. We need to identify goals for that individual. Make sure their goals and their priorities align, right? Which I'll probably talk about a little bit more later, what that really means. And when you have those two things that are aligned, then we can start to get into, what are the habits that you have developed, and how can we, develop some good lifestyle habits. And from there, maybe we talk about, nutritional hygiene and what it means to eat clean, and just how far you want to start to take it down the rabbit hole. But that same piece of their process or assessment starting out, we have a machine. It's a medical grade machine called an InBody. The InBody is a body composition and body fat analysis, skeletal muscle mass analysis scanner. And so it's a really unique machine, really neat. It's been great for us because we can get prospective clients onto the machine during their first initial consultation. We get a reading on that screening, and then they get a printout immediately. And then that same machine tracks everything that they do month to month. So like if you started with us, in January, and we had a coaching consultation in February, we would get back on the machine. It would show your previously recorded scores. And so what it does is it puts some value back around, not just necessarily weight on a scale, right? Up or down. If you're somebody who wants to gain, if you're somebody who wants to lose weight, lose fat, accumulate mass, whatever it is, we have some good metrics and markers there that we actually track month to month. So it creates, again, like an awareness there, and then also accountability there. And then we use those other numbers. It gives you a BMR. So your calorie burn at rest, it tells us that. And it
like
gives
basal metabolic rate, right?
Yep. So it tells us as coaches as well some data or some metrics to create an actual nutritional program based around what you and your body legitimately need. And so, we use a bunch of different principles, whether it's for weight loss, fat loss, mass gain, whatever it is. We have a ton of success with people. And we have a bunch of case studies that, can show that success. Somebody in 6 months, coming down from 347 pounds to 268 pounds. Body fat percentage reducing from, that same person, body fat reducing from 37 now into the 20s, and they're on their way to their goal of 220, at year's end.
From 347?
From 347, yeah. So in a very, very healthy way, just because they're following an accurate prescription that happens to be coupled up with, a really good fitness program as well. And then they've got the accountability. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is, someone comes in who's, extremely lean individual, looking to put mass on, maybe that person who's never been able to gain weight or put muscle on. And, same deal, because we have the data and the metrics from day one, we can actually align like a caloric intake and then go down the road of macronutrient balance and, how we want to play putting that mass on along the way. And we're able to design a fitness program that's going to, it's really going to support and nurture that kind of growth, which isn't always the case with every type of exercise program.
Right.
So that's the beauty too, is that because everything is individualized and tailored to you, our coaches and everyone is a professional. Every single coach that we have is, minimum, just through OPEC certification and coaching process. You're talking 12 months of, pretty rigorous training and education and passing of tests. And so what that training process is, it's aligned to try to help these coaches along their way. And the beauty of it now is we have OPEX facilities, which is what we are. So great coaches that make up my team, and everybody's on the same page. And so with that, it's pretty fluid. We get people in. We know exactly what the process is to help those people. Everyone has the knowledge and the background to be able to create some awareness around their priorities and goals, and we get those things established, and then we take them through, that initial body scan, and we get some nutritional pieces on the board, and then we take them through a movement screening on day 2, which is not teach you how to do like PVC squats.
It's like an evaluation.
Yeah, it's actually looking left to right, top to bottom. Like, do you have weakness in your hips, and can we fix that, and can we make it a priority of your program? Regardless of what it might be. And then from there, we also go to like a work capacity, testing phase. And so when we're done that 3-day assessment, we're left with having some good base knowledge, what that person is really trying to do, what their expectations are, what our expectations are, and then we can go from there.
Nice. I like it a lot. My dog just kind of like stormed down the steps. But no, I think what's great about this, man, and anybody who hasn't seen OPEX, go check it out. The training, and I've known Cody for quite some time, and the training that I remember from you telling me about it just to become OPEX certified is really in depth, which gives, just a lot of credibility to the actual knowledge that these guys are bringing to you as a gym or as a coach or as a trainer. It's really impressive when they found a way to essentially like take this almost like holistic approach to how you're training people, how you're just from the moment that you walk into the door, like Cody's mentioning, you get on the BW, what is it? BMW?
The assessment process.
The assessment process, yeah.
But it's
so
the
in-body, yeah. And that's just like for, because a lot of people may not know this, but, if you've been in the fitness industry, you probably are aware, body composition is what you're looking at. Right. It's not your BMI or anything along those lines, or just weight on a scale. Body composition, how much muscle as compared to how much fat you have. And, I don't know if you guys catch like bone densities or anything like that with that, but that might be a different machine. But anyway, it's a really, I think, revolutionary way to create a fitness program for even just the average Joe, not a super athlete, not somebody who needs to be or wants to be in like the NFL or anything like that. But
on that point, ultimately for us, that is our market, right? It's like there's a lot of times that the phrasing, the terminology like fit for life gets thrown around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like sometimes you evaluate those programs and what actually goes into those individuals' lifestyle and their training plan, and although it's good and there's some good short-term results that they're going to gain from it.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not necessarily sustainable, and so we're trying to reassociate value with the newcomer, with somebody who has an extensive fitness experience, whatever it is. We're trying to reassociate and realign value for that person behind what it is they actually care about.
Yeah.
And that is like, that's a very deep process that myself, my coaches are trained to go through with people. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean it's like a big kumbaya session, but I mean that we're asking the right types of questions.
Right.
Because that's step one.
I think that's really important. I think a lot of people will forget, or people who have exercised too, they'll say, oh, you know, when I'm done exercising, I feel so much better. Like, I think what's great is when you can address those types of things at the forefront, it gives you, you know, leverage to get into the gym, but it also gives you kind of the ability to catch the right mindset while you're in the gym. So you're getting everything out of what you're, you know, like your time, and you're spending your time efficiently.
Right.
Right.
Yep. And that can, so kind of on that note, and part of, you know, I'll speak to this because we deal with it, you know, directly, which is I have spent a good deal of time coaching in, you know, various, you know, some different fitness models, right? Between training groups in class format, training teams, you know, different scholastic athletes for high school, you know, strength and conditioning. And ultimately in that group setting, a lot of times, and it's at no fault of the group, but, you know, for the very same reason about what is good in terms of camaraderie and people working together, the tough part is a lot of times the value association gets skewed. And I talk to our guys a lot about, you know, my example is always and you kind of fill in the blank here, but a handstand push-up, you know. Mm-hmm. And what can happen is you can take someone who ultimately is looking for longevity, is looking for vitality, is looking for looking good and feeling good, and is looking for really like wellness and great energy and balance. You can throw them in the mix with, you know, a group type model fitness program, and they start to realign and associate value over time. Mm-hmm. with trying to, with wanting to need something or need a certain skill or perform a certain movement that they don't actually need, nor do they have any application to their life. Right? Sure. So that person walks in day one and they're like, you know, hey Casey, I wanna get fit, and you're like, yeah, we got you, you know. And then that person says, like, you know, you might ask them some questions like, what exactly brought you in? And, you know, oh well, my friend, you know, told me about, you know, this type of fitness or whatever, that type of fitness, and then, you know, I just want to feel good, man. You know, I'm out of shape. I used to be in shape. And, you know, little by little, and again, it's like no fault really of anything ultimately other than the calamity of the culture sometimes. And so it's like over time, that person who started, and you hear this all the time. I know you do because I used to hear it all the time. It's like,
I know exactly where you're going.
Fit. I just want to be fit. Yep. And, you know, 90 days later, that person leaves the gym every day feeling shitty about themselves because they're like, I can't do a handstand push-up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, when you came in,
you're measuring it in the wrong capacity.
Your system gets skewed against what you think you need to be able to do in order to validate your fitness. Mm-hmm. Right? So, like, when those things and those lines start to cross, we get this really convoluted message that, unfortunately, you know, we're not maybe sending directly, right? Because, you know, good... And, again, like, it's not a stab at the model of the coaches, but it's like, you know, what are we gonna do? This is the style of training that we use. So until you can reach that person and meet them where they are and reach them on an individualized level, and look, let me be clear here, like, come walk into OPEX at any time of the day, and you're gonna see 12 to 18 people on our floor working out together, having a great time in an awesome atmosphere, and everybody is aligned with what they're doing, so there's even more enjoyment.
Sure, I would say that's what one of the questions that popped in my head is. That's probably your guys' biggest criticism.
Oh man, I don't want to work out by myself.
I don't want to work out by myself. Yeah.
Come by. We've been here 10 minutes. Come by. You know, so look.
It's no different than like if you go to LA Fitness, everybody's doing their own thing, but you still have your gym buddies and that kind of, you know, even if you're doing something different, you're still kind of hanging out with people. So just be friendly.
Exactly.
Don't be an asshole.
You know? Also, the added bonus benefit of legitimate fitness coaching on the floor and not necessarily like moving around from machine to machine. You know?
Sure.
So on the other end, what separates us from you know, a Globo gym necessarily is that, right? There's direction. And what you're receiving, right, is like, you know, I talked about the assessment process. I haven't even gone into like what we do.
The actual like application of things.
Yeah, I talked about like how you get started. You know, so how you get started, you go through this BMW program. You we get metrics on that, and we evaluate your nutrition, we evaluate your lifestyle, and we evaluate your current fitness, where you sit right now. We try to get some good markers generated around where you sit, right, and what we're attached to. And then you're going to work directly with your coach. We got this great, web platform that a lot of coaches and a lot of facilities, both group and individual, are using now, called Fitbot.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, Fitbot's awesome.
What is it?
So my best explanation for Fitbot is it's a, basically it's a subscription service as you as the business or you as a coach, where, basically you can sign up as a coach and have a certain, you pay for a certain client load. Okay, and as that client load goes up, obviously there's the different pricing levels, but ultimately it's eliminated spreadsheets forever, and how we deliver programming and fitness programming to people.
Like an app on your client's phone, and then you can send it to them?
Yep, 100%. So, even before we were an OPEX facility, and, I was doing some individualized design programming for different athletes on a small scale that I worked with. Everything that I did, it was about as bootleg as it gets in terms of delivery, because it was all done in notes. You know what I mean?
Write it down on a napkin.
I'm not a very... I'm not somebody who is extremely attached to spreadsheets and numbers, and I never have been. So I'm the guy who will write something down on my calendar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
old school.
That's not to say. Yeah, it's I'm a mix. I have certain things that I just don't. I won't change yet. But at the same time, if you know anything about me and you know anything about OPEX, I'm highly involved in terms of the digital marketing that we do, and understanding the influence and the importance of what comes through the phone and the laptop and the iPad now, in terms of where people get their information. So very up on that, but at the same time, very old school in terms of delivery.
I think wrapping this into that Fitbot, it just creates accessibility for your people. It's just a way simpler way to do things.
It's a platform. You've got basically every single person. You can manage mass client loads. You as the coach can create different programs that you can, somebody wants to, on the non-ID side, right? If you run a fitness facility and clients want to, come in and pay you extra money for a strength program or something like that,
run it through there,
right in there, and then you can, quite honestly, you can plug and play, and it's already built for them, and you can. We do it a little bit more in depth because we individualize everything down to the finest details. So, less on our end from that, but that's a great feature. We got a messaging feature, which is huge. So, you're my client. Basically, there's a intra-platform message feature that you can send me messages about your training or how you're feeling, or if you need me to move a day for you or whatever that is. Or probably the most popular, which is hey, I'm traveling today, so I'm going to be in this hotel, and I'm going to send you a picture when I get there, and can you design it? Absolutely.
Yep.
So, man, I joke about this. I used to rack my brain because, I listen to a lot of stuff as well. We talked about before we started this thing that you listen to a lot of podcasts. So I also listen to a lot of podcasts, not so much recently, but I have in the past. And a lot of who I was listening to when we were getting started at OPEX was Gary Vee.
Who?
Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Gary Vee's great. I think there's a lot of what he's talking about, from how to motivate somebody who's trying to build a business, and there's some great pieces there. I don't eat every single thing that comes out of his mouth, but I really, really believe in just the concept about trying to execute and trying to build something ultimately. And so I think that
he's more. Is he involved in OPEX, or is he? No, he's a business guy, right? He's a business coach kind of. He's a good talker though, man. He's got a lot of good things. I know exactly who you're talking about.
He's big in the business platform, but basically he talks a lot about different businesses and different platforms that are getting ready to explode, and being ahead of the curve, and how to evaluate different things. And I look at it in one company he always talks about, he's like, man, I left millions on the table because I didn't partner with Uber when I should have.
Dude.
But he talks about Uber a lot, and he says, that Uber isn't necessarily selling transportation, they're selling convenience, they're selling time.
Yeah.
And I used to rack my brain when we first opened. I'm like, how do we do that? Right? We got this great thing, how do we do it? And I'm going to be honest with you, I think we I think we are. You know,
like creating the most bang for your buck, so to speak, or just efficiency, like we were saying.
The way I approach it is that if you really want to know, and there's far more granular details about it, and obviously you've heard some of the ins and outs of the quality we try to deliver and the approach that we have, but if you want the truth, OPEX, go into an OPEX individualized design facility, my goal, it's the last fitness program you're ever going to need.
Mm-hmm.
Period. You know, think about that statement for 5 seconds. How many people have been on 35 different programs in the last 3 years? You know, because
it's very true.
They bounce around. This is it. You got a coach. That coach knows everything there is to know about you and what you're trying to do. And we're designing everything you need to be able to, you know, take the approach over time. And guess what? 6 months later, that changes. Well, that's cool because every month along the way, we've been talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fully aware of what those changes need to be. And you might have been a general fitness, you know, goer, and all of a sudden you have this aspiration to do a triathlon. Well, that means your training style is going to change.
Yeah.
So what do? Do you go online and grab the next triathlon program, or do you grab your coach
who actually knows what you're doing
about you and your metrics and your strength and your conditioning, and now that person devises the plan.
So do you guys, and maybe this is where it comes from pairing certain coaches with certain people, do you have, you know, like, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, like everybody has their own goal. Do you have certain, or does OPEX sort of prescribe certain like base models of how to program things, or certain exercises or that type of thing? Because, you know, like there's, I mean, every sort of shtick has their own little, every sort of, you know, CrossFit does, like their whole thing is the functional fitness and combining gymnastics and weightlifting and all those types of deals. And then there's Zumba who they dance all day. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody kind of has their own thing. Yeah, they get it in. But like, so what hits me is when you say the last fitness program you'll need for the rest of your life, that pretty much takes any limitation off of what you guys will program for somebody, like barring individual coaches' own biases.
Yeah, so it's as I go with this thing, man, it's like I keep trying to figure out exactly how to put my thumb on what this thing is that I'm trying to get across to people. And you sort of nail it there, and this is ultimately like the past couple of days that, you know, a couple of new clients we've had come in and get started. I sort of have been kind of defaulting to that. If you want to know the honest truth for me as I build it, is what it really is it's having a coach who sincerely cares and is invested fully in figuring out what you want and then figuring out how you're going to get there. And so you're right, there is no ceiling on what we're going to do, and we're going to go actively seek out the best type of methodology that you could think of to reach that goal or to reach that whatever it is that you're setting for yourself.
So like continuing education as a coach is a big deal for you guys.
It's mandatory.
It has to. And that's something that gets lost in fitness right now. People fall into patterns, and it's like, this is how you do it. Well, and there's got to be development all the time.
Everything's 90 days. Everything's short.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
Same thing with everybody who wants to get success tomorrow.
Do these 7 exercises and you'll be, you know, yoked.
Yeah, and look, there's some value to that, right? There's some value to short-term, like, commitment of, like, pushing through and reaching a goal and getting a jump start. But at the same time, you know, who's looking 10 years out?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what gym do you know that's looking 10 years out? Because when you walk into my place tomorrow, we're looking 10 years down the road. You don't know it.
Yeah. But that's on the back end.
But we do, you know, and that's how we try to approach every single person.
Excuse me.
And, like, you know, people go back to the example I said. How many people walk in and say, I just want to be fit for life?
Yeah.
3 months later, what are they telling you? I don't have a handstand push-up.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is, like, our people aren't going to even know that the handstand push-up matters to them.
Right.
It's never aligned. They're going to see them. You know
I think,
If you think we don't train functional fitness athletes, of course we do. That's where we come from. But we train them intelligently to the best of our knowledge and experience. Which is another conversation, and also, we apply what you're asking about, which is the principles of program design, sort of set in place by James Fitzgerald and OPEX, and that's another conversation.
Sure,
in terms
there's
of
a lot going on.
Credibility and what exists there. So again, it's seeking. And exactly, you want to, not anybody walks into OPEC's Upper Main Line and coaches. You know, in fact, it's funny, on the way here, that was part of a blog idea I was thinking about writing to release in the next couple of weeks. Is like, no, you can't coach here. You know? and it's not arrogant. It's not because I hate you or anybody else.
Well, it takes a certain person to
exactly.
get it across.
Right? And look, how do we set ourselves apart?
Right.
Just to be frank, how do we set ourselves apart?
You have to sell something valuable, essentially, as a business person.
So, you know, who do we compete with in the market? I mean, eventually, it's where we sit is in a really unique place.
Yeah.
So we're not personal training. We're not group fitness. We're a really premier service.
It's a really interesting concept, and like there's a couple of things like with what you're saying. There's a couple like avenues we can roll down here. The first one that, like, before I forget what I'm talking about, is the whole idea of, like, you know, how are you going to measure your fitness? And by measuring, you know, I can't do a handstand push-up yet, just as the example. You know, one of the things, and I'm a CrossFit gym owner, and I am learning this myself, and something that I try to bring into my gym is that long-term fitness, the longevity for the people. And one of the things that happens just with CrossFit specifically, and I'm sure it's the same for like powerlifters or strongman or Olympic weightlifters or whatever it is, any kind of competition that is in the fitness realm, is we compare ourselves to, you know, the CrossFit games. Like, well, all right, these guys are doing this, so that means that I'm not fit unless I'm doing that. And that's not true. It's not true at all. You know, you have to, one of the things that I think is happening, especially in CrossFit, is, you know, some people are getting this, is that there's a divide. There's CrossFit as a sport, and there's CrossFit as a training methodology. And it's a big difference, or it needs to be. And a lot of times it gets blurred, and I think that's a problem. So, like, one of the things that I'm trying to do, and that Cody and I were talking about also, is I'm trying to find a way to, you know, if someone will come to me and they say, hey, I want to be a CrossFit competitor, I want to go to regionals, I want to go to the games. All right, this is what you're going to do. But that's not how everybody in my gym gets trained. You know what I mean? There's a underlying thing, and I think CrossFit does say this pretty well. And if you look at it as objective as possible, just the idea of functional fitness, if you just look at those two words only, that means everything. It means everything and anything. There's not one specific methodology that goes under or defines functional fitness, and it needs to be spread around in different ways. It needs to be separated and individualized to a certain point. Like, I'm, before class or after class, giving all the individuals in my classes, like, hey, do these, you know, TheraBand exercises, your shoulder hurts, or like your hips are tight, do this stretch, or that kind of thing. So there has to be some kind of individuality to where you're comparing yourself against yourself rather than, you know, what, like, the fittest man on earth is doing, or like what the strongest man in the world is doing, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, my only argument to that, right, which is kind of why, you know, I was chuckling a little bit when you were telling it. It's not because what you're saying is wrong. What you're saying is right. Mm-hmm. You come from, you have a great level of experience too as an athlete yourself and a coach, so you understand kind of the fabric of what it really means, mm-hmm. right? So you know firsthand exactly what it is and what it takes to train like an athlete and get to regionals or a higher level.
Right.
Okay. And I'm not saying you have to be a great athlete to be a great coach. You don't.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's a lot of blurred lines between how many people in group fitness think that they understand that. And at one point or another, every member of CrossFit Gym started being called an athlete, right?
Like our athletes.
These are our athletes, right? And I'm going to be very honest. I stand very hard on this line. It's
sure.
Like, that irritates the hell out of me, right? Because
how come?
Because I know what it is to be an athlete.
Okay.
And I know what I was willing to do, and I know what I wasn't willing to do. And that's not because I don't want those people to be athletes, right? Or that they're not giving it all they have.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, I think it sets the wrong precedent under the same parameters
just
that
the
you're
wording.
Speaking of.
Yeah.
Because now everybody that's in your class is not a member at your fitness facility. We just elevated them to athlete.
So inherently they have
What
the
does an athlete
comparison
do?
competes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's a good point.
it's the same.
Did I say athletes at my gym?
No.
I'm just saying.
mean,
Okay, now I'm thinking
listen,
back.
look,
Because I agree with you. I think that
I can-
sets a precedent because, one of the things that I think a lot about and try to apply is like terminology, just in like general conversation even.
Yeah.
How you talk to somebody or what you say to somebody or something like that, that will shape their perception of their world and the world that they're living in.
Everyone's an athlete.
Not everyone.
Not every
but
gym
not
knows
everybody
what it
has to be
means
an athlete.
Program for elite competitors.
That's very true.
Own it. You have no experience as an owner in elite competition. Why are you trying to train elite competitors and offer that as a service? Because the gym down the street does it?
Yeah. I agree with you.
I'll see right through that. And your athletes, they can see right through it too.
Yeah.
Right?
People can smell bullshit from a mile away.
100%.
Totally. That's why one of the things that I always end up saying to people is just in general, or like one of the things that I try to, live by is, you can't give what you don't have. If I can't, dude, I don't fucking know how to break dance. So I'm not going to teach somebody how to be a professional break dancer. If I've never been to even I've never been to the CrossFit games. I can tell you, I can help you get to regionals. I'm pretty sure I can help you get to the cross. But even still, like if you, like whatever the line is, there is a line. So I think what you're saying is, and tell me if I'm wrong, is just not necessarily stay in your lane, but recognize what you're able to offer, effectively.
Yeah, and recognize what the words that are coming out. You have an obligation, like as a fitness coach. These people come to you with a problem. You know what I mean? And to their knowledge, you have the solution. So when you start to shape these people in a way that paints a picture for them that reattaches their value to something that they didn't come into, well, listen, honestly, thanks. Because here's what's going to happen. They're not going to last. They're going to find themselves questioning again what it is that I need. All of the, stuff that you threw at them that repainted the visual for what they needed to do, and that they latched onto because they felt significance in a part of your facility. Again, that candle will burn out. Sometimes when it burns out, those people feel so connected to your place that they just will stay there in purgatory, right? So that's the lucky case that they're afraid to leave somewhere because they, you know what I mean? They feel
they're
sure. But the other ones will leave because you're not answering the question, or you're not solving the problem that they had before. In fact, you just injected another problem into their life.
Sure.
And so, again, go back to what you just said, right? I think, CrossFit does a good job, whatever. My question is, do they? Because, and look, I can say this because I did it.
Sure.
I was all the way in. I had a facility. I chased the numbers. I wore all the hats. And look, I love CrossFit. I do. The same reason that I love it, I can tell you that there are some really screwed up mixed messages coming down the line where it says 8 months out of the year, oh man, CrossFit games, that's not CrossFit. Go to a gym, that's CrossFit, right? Well, you tell me, and you know just as damn well as I do, that come February, right? Are you doing the Open? Are you doing the Open? Yeah, you gotta sign up for the Open. Everybody sign up for the Open. Why? Would a non-athlete sign up for the Open, and why would that pressure be injected upon them to do something? But they will do it because it's part of the community.
It's the community.
And guess what? In July, when they say, that's not CrossFit. CrossFit Games not CrossFit. Just go to a gym. That's CrossFit. Well, in July,
it's a big circle.
When it's on TV, guess what they're saying? This is CrossFit.
Yeah.
So
it's tricky, man. It is. I think what I'm getting at here is by saying like the functionality, like the definition that they put on fitness.
Yeah, totally.
I agree with.
Yeah.
And I think that is what we're talking about here that gets lost.
The same thing there for sure.
It gets lost because of things like, the competition aspect and that sort of deal. It's hard when the competition is the same essentially as the training methodology. Like people talk about it all the time, like, NFL players, like they practice and stuff like that, but like they lift weights in the off season. They don't necessarily they're not playing games every weekend.
Yeah, it's
hard when
testing for us,
right?
And let me take it a step further. It's exercising.
Yeah,
versus testing.
I think that's what gets lost a lot, and I think that's where a lot of problems come in.
Things.
is because people will get very wrapped up in, the competition side and there is a lot of pressures and stuff that come along, because I'll run into the conversation all the time, like, oh, you're doing the open, and like I'll ask, are you doing the open, or would you do this or that? And people are like, oh, I don't know, I just don't think I'm ready for it. I don't feel like this or that. And then you can see them start to kind of like shake and get nervous and stuff like that. And in all reality, like that's not going to define you that's not going to define your fitness. What defines your ability is your longevity. And fitness, I think another definition health, I think in the fitness world definition is like having enough energy and ability to perform normal daily activities with enough in reserve, quote unquote, reserve for emergencies.
Sure.
And that gets lost a lot of times.
I think the beauty of what we're doing is, especially at OPEX, is like we're actually trying to extract that definition from each person.
Mm-hmm.
So
comparing like individual to individual.
You know what I mean? But somebody else's definition can be completely different.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to ask questions around that to make sure it's real and to make sure that the priorities are in alignment for what that means. You know what I mean? How many people come and tell you they want to compete, but they don't want to compete?
Right.
You don't want to do it. You just don't. Like, you don't want to.
You might think that you want to, but I don't know if you really do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we talk about it all the time that, your actions will dictate where your priorities are.
Sure. So, how do we go about, real quick, like bridging that gap? Because I come from a place where I think everybody and everything needs to, like, can live harmoniously.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? So how do we bridge that gap? Do we change the language?
Yeah, I think that's part. I think it's a byproduct of it, but I think it starts with awareness and education around those things. Now, are we going to bridge the gap between high intensity all the time and everything else?
Yeah, yeah.
Nope.
It just depends on what people, on what you go for.
The life cycle of that individual comes to kind of like a realization or a reckoning of like,
sure.
You know what, I don't know if I can continue this way.
Sure.
And like, again, I mean, you guys who are listening know Casey. You might know me. If you don't know me, I came through CrossFit, and
that's
started
how we
in
met.
2011, and Casey and I were kind of in this thing together for, a good portion of the years that he and I were both competitive as well, and yeah, I mean, it was different. You know what I mean? Just to speak frankly, it was different. I love the sport. I'll always love the sport. I'm not bashing the entity altogether, but what I see is that part of why I had a group facility at one point, and chose to go in a different direction, and that direction was driven by the ability that I knew I was going to be able to help people and build a sustainable business model around what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And just to be honest, it's very hard in the group model altogether to capture that, because, man, you're trying to help so many people, and that's your intent, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, my way is the only way, but at the same time, I know I can do so much more with how we operate, and I know that I'm helping so many more individuals on a daily basis, and I've got them connected to something real that they can put a lot of attachment to, and that goes so much further and beyond than your Fran time and stressing out about the 1 second that you missed on Fran for today, because
there's something bigger at work.
What's that?
There's something bigger. There's a bigger picture to look at than what we might get wrapped up in.
Right, and listen, it's easy to get wrapped in.
It's very easy.
And that's ultimately what I'm saying. So the whole break away from that allowed for some different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I mean, in our group facility, we used to individualize training to a degree. We leveled our programming and tried to take the biggest steps towards that. That we could in terms of trying to drive the point home, but at some point it broke. I felt like I wasn't helping anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people believed in what we were, trying to do and talk about. And so transitioning into that individualized model just allowed us an opportunity to bring people along the right way and for us to, help them actually change their lives. And what we've been able to do in the last 10 months with those people has been fantastic. And the results are tenfold. Like it's not even close. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
We have, roughly around, 85, 90 clients that we're servicing right now. And I will tell you this. I know every single one of them personally. I know everything that you need to know about that individual to shape their programming in their life and their lifestyle. I know what their nutritional profile looks like, as does my team. And I know ultimately what their goals are based around their lifestyle and their priorities and what we talked about. And I've been able to work with all of these people either directly or indirectly as a part of, somebody else on my staff being their direct coach. But I'm telling you right now, I mean, we know what everyone is looking to do. We know what the expectation is. And we've been able to help them create that alignment so that there is no more detachment. And every single person walks into OPEX every day excited to be there and exercise because they understand the value that it returns on their life. And they leave every day feeling fulfilled, not like they can't do a handstand push-up.
Right.
So you got to really look into that because I
think I get what you're saying, and what I like about this, and like a couple things came to my head. What I like about this is you're able to, and you guys have successfully found a way to create a person's fulfillment based off of their own action and return, not based off of the comparison and like the positive comparison in their favor of something else. So you're creating essentially within each individual a stronger foundation that creates real habit change and real habit forming pattern that is going to be positive and is going to create that longevity that you're talking about. So when someone is intrinsically motivated, you can't stop that. You know what I mean? When you're motivated by, external factors, or like even people compare it to like money. When you're motivated by just making money, like you're going to, something's going to give. Yeah. Just as a general thing. So I think what's great about that is when you take the time to invest in a person, not just in like, getting their squat number up, but also what's your goal attached to this? Well, why do you want to do this? Why are you here? Or what, how do we balance this out with a proper nutrition plan? And how do we, get you to live longer, to walk your daughter down the aisle, that kind of stuff. That's when you create real lasting change and you create real opportunity for, you create opportunity for success. And the one thing that that also popped in my head, and this is kind of like a side point, but I believe, and now, so I own a CrossFit gym, Chad's Ford CrossFit, and we have I think we have around 40 members. Smaller gym. There's a lot of really big gyms out there. I personally think if we were to go to 70 members, that I'd have to cap it, because one of the things, and I find myself saying this all the time, is I love that my gym is smaller. I love that I have a smaller gym because I can spend the hour class, I can spend a majority of time with the 3 people that I have in class.
You're 100% right.
Giving the individual attention that I think is required for a lot of people. And
it runs away from you at some point. And you can, again, it's like a whole different rabbit hole, but like you can bring staffing in to help support that, but
it's tough. A lot gets lost in the shuffle.
Exactly. And so as the owner, you are trying to preserve quality, but at the same time you end up in certain positions as you rapidly grow where you need hands on deck based out of necessity, an immediate necessity. And so you wind up grabbing people who have the certification or who have gone through the process or can go through the process really quickly, and all of a sudden that person that you are working out next to on Wednesday is your coach. And you're like, what's going on?
And I think that goes for anything. I mean, not just like this is us, like not even just talking about CrossFit in general right now. I think that goes for anything. Like there has to be a ratio. What's the proper ratio of person to coach or person to teacher? How many students can a teacher effectively teach? Or how many how many people can you safely and efficiently, especially in the fitness world, everything has to be safe. you have to perform things properly, and you have to be able to keep, essentially your hands on the entire time. So creating individual time with a coach is great. Like, I love a big class at my gym is maybe 7 people, and that's perfect.
And what you're saying really is that you, through that smaller client base, what you're saying is that you're able to maintain and preserve and develop relationships with those people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually the thing.
Yeah.
Right? So the whole time you were kind of going through that in terms of like, what's the effectiveness of this many people per this coach or whatever. Listen, I'll tell you right now, like what it comes down to is your ability to reach those people on a personal level and make them understand that not only are you taking care of their fitness program, but you legitimately care about their well-being and what's going on within their life, so that you can continue to help them build and guide them along the journey that they're on at whatever point within their life that it is. So you don't have to be, a therapist all of the time for them, but
you just gotta give a shit.
That person has to know that you have their back, and that person has to know the relationship and the bond that you have. And look, as that number grows, you are one person that gets away from you. Mm-hmm. So where does the magic happen? The magic happens within the ability to keep a great handle on the relationships that you have.
Right.
And so, I say it all the time, like my hat goes off to our team, because, there is 8 of us, and we have a vision, and we're aligned together, and we're driven around that piece alone, which is that we need to know, and we need to be 100% sure, beyond the quality of our service, beyond the quality of our fitness knowledge and deliverability and programming, but we need to make sure that our people know that every single one of them is significant to every single one of us. Mm-hmm. And that is like, there's a difference. You can hear it in my voice. There's a difference between that and saying that, like, that this is the best hour of their day.
Right.
And, like, that's a tired ass statement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of hours of the day.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that people could be spending their time doing. And my point is, coming to OPEX can be the best hour of somebody's day. And that's fantastic. But really, if I had to really talk about what I wanted them to do, is that when those people show up, I don't care if they're there for 30 minutes or they're for 30 hours.
Yeah.
I want them to feel the significance that they deserve from embarking on a journey with us and our coaching staff, and putting their trust into us being able to guide them towards, achieving greatness and, relative to what they want. And being a little bit vulnerable and putting their trust into our staff, and knowing that each and every one of us care about each and every one of them. And, at the end of the day, that is what matters.
Yeah. I agree with you. I just brought on a guy. Well, he's been coaching for a little bit, but one of the things that, like, we talked about, and I said, hey, man, look, I can teach you, what a tricep is. I can teach you how to do this. I can teach you all those types of things. What it's hard to teach somebody is to be genuine and to, like, and to give a shit and to be a good person and to just be representative of what your mission is. Authenticity. That's a great. Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
People can sniff that.
And people get it, man. And it's, even if it's a subconscious thing, I think that everybody will pick up on. And so this kid, his name's John. He's got it, man. He's awesome, and he's a great coach. He's a really smart guy, But that's kind of what I look for. And I think, I know you, I know Ty, I know Emily. I've met Greg a couple times. I think Chris, right? I met Chris once or twice. Everybody's genuine, man. And that's what makes it run. That's what people come back for.
Yeah, and I think, you're 100% right. And ultimately the big vision for us is, we want to be able to grow, and we want to be able to scale, and we want to be able to continually deliver a service that is unmatchable. Like, we are in that market, and there's going to be people who try to replicate what we do. I know that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. Well, because as soon as something works, everybody wants to do it.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I look at that, and I evaluate that in the market as cool, what we're doing is right.
Be a leader.
And yeah, so that was kind of like to the next point. Like ultimately, where we're going is, you know, trying to take our coaching staff and shape these guys into being great leaders, and not just within the gym, but within the surrounding community in the Paoli area, in the Malvern area, and trying to grow that out. You know, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but we want to be so fluid in our delivery that, you know, everyone feels the consistency and everyone feels that significance that I'm talking about, and there just isn't anything else or anywhere else that they would even consider going because of what we're able to deliver.
Sure.
So
I think one of the best pieces, and this just popped in my head too, one of the best pieces of advice that you ever gave me when I first bought the gym was make it, essentially what you said was just make it your own. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's your gym, dude. Like, you know, you can do whatever you want with it. And what that does for me, and one of the things that I do that I think is going to align with what you do is, you know, I've done that, and I've thought about what I like to do as a coach, or what I like to do as when I'm working out and that types of thing. And I don't really follow a traditional model of, like, you know, programming or this types of thing that you might find in another CrossFit gym, just because I own a CrossFit gym. And making that individual thing and not being afraid to be innovative with stuff, I think is a big deal, because like we said before, it's easy to get wrapped up in those patterns and those types of things, and that limits your growth. And the idea is growth. The idea is to help the most amount of people for as long as possible.
Yep.
And if we're doing the same thing all the time and not growing and not learning, not continuing education as trainers or as people, as clients, you know, if you're not constantly trying to find something that's going to keep working for you or pushing you or creating a new goal or those types of things and evaluating what you're doing, you know, you kind of get stuck in the mud a little bit, and it limits growth.
Yeah, we say,
right?
If you're not growing, you're dying.
Exactly.
That's it, you know, to the T. Like, and you mentioned that about continuing education and, you know, what our stance is on that. Like, again, it's like we're saying a lot of the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I can remember having that conversation with you, because you have to be able to look, if you want to be happy, right, and you want to get fulfillment, you have to be able to mold your product and service offering into, you know, exactly what aligns within your vision and
something that you believe in.
Yeah, and like it's easy to get, just like it's easy to get lost in the mix as a member of a facility for certain reasons or another. It's easy as an owner to get lost as well, and almost to let things stagnate, because
absolutely,
at the end of the day, it comes down to, all right, let's work out today.
I'll think of a workout tomorrow.
Right, and so it's a tough conversation that not everybody wants to always talk about, because you know, sometimes to the outsider, like, the life of a CrossFit gym owner or a gym owner period is, you know, hang out all day and work out all day, and, you know, everything's...
It's not how it is at all.
And look, of course, like, and honestly, you know, the reason people think that is because they maybe they value your personality and how, you know, exciting you are, and it is the best time of their day when they show up, because you're able to provide not only, you know, great service from a fitness standpoint, but you're entertaining, you make them feel significant, you know. So those are all the emotional pieces that kind of come along with that. But you as a human need to be continually trying to improve not only your education and what you know, but improve your processes and refine. You know what I mean? When you lose the ability and you lose the drive to become better, what are you really doing? You know what I mean? You're dying.
It reflects.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're not willing to continually look inward and continually look outward for solutions and how to be better, and really take a look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, you know, are we doing every single thing that we can? And I've kind of found, whatever you want to call it, like a little bit of my role within OPEX as we grow, beyond just being a coach and being somebody who works with individuals, is kind of that. Like, it's trying to evaluate things from the business aspect and see what opportunities exist, and see what we can create ultimately to leave a greater impact within the community. Because it's not, you know, we have to expand beyond our reach just inside of what we do. And that doesn't mean take over the world, but it does mean that, you know, I've sort of tried to live by this, and I think this goes as far back, and it's funny because it's all along the same lines. I was a CrossFit coach years ago, and always trying to educate myself on the next thing, whatever that was. So anything I could get my hands on that was related to training and making somebody better for performance or whatever it is. And Power Athlete Now is like a fantastic podcast I listen to pretty often. Back then they were CrossFit Football. And got into a little bit of what John
I didn't know that Power Athlete. I've never heard of it.
Yep. And would read the articles on CrossFitFootball.com and look at the videos and see whatever they had to spit out, because it was this whole, if you really think about what CrossFit Football was, it was this whole other side of like high intensity functional fitness, where his whole game was, I'm not married to one thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you tell me that eating a pint of ice cream and riding a merry-go-round is going to make me a better competitor athlete, then like I'm
in.
Try. Right, exactly. So I know that's not
but the example is there. Yeah.
The context behind it is, I've tried to, that was the early stages kind of my career then, and I really latched onto that because at the time I remember being so engulfed within CrossFit methodology period. So it was like every day same thing. This is what we're gonna do.
Sure.
Why would you do that? You only could do this. Why would you do that? And so that whole thing has evolved so much because, and even my willingness to kind of take part in my own journey as an OPEX coach and sort of passing that along, and then the opportunity to become an OPEX facility as they began to license out. Like, when we took part in this, I mean, we were one of the first 15 facilities in the world. And for me, I didn't see the risk in that because I knew what the principles were. And the principles were not necessarily being married to one singular element, but understanding that this whole thing, just like, listen, CrossFit doesn't own high intensity. Like, they don't.
That's what I was thinking is, I think it has to be read, and I'm a pretty literal person.
Yeah.
The methodologies and definitions of things have to be read very literally.
Right.
Otherwise, you're fucked.
Yep.
You're going to be in a rabbit hole and you're never going to get out. Like when you CrossFit, what CrossFit says is, constantly varied functional movement, at high intensity. It's those three statements.
Yeah.
It's high intensity is what CrossFit essentially separates itself with, and that's something that they branded a lot.
Yep.
But if you look at the definition, or another part of that definition, it's functional movement.
Yep.
And that is, I think, the base for everything. Everything has to be functional. So if you're looking at that in a literal sense, you're not going to rule out anything just because it's not high intensity.
Right.
You're not going to rule out any other movement. Like I was listening to another great podcast, and it's a jiu-jitsu coach who's like a functional movement coach.
Okay.
And he talks about, like get on a mat and just roll around. Yeah. Like jiu-jitsu guys will roll all the time and they'll just put themselves in different positions. That's functional fitness. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have, intensity varies between people, but that falls under the definition that I think a lot of methodologies, right?
Yeah, you got it.
You know what I'm fucking talking about. What all of them are trying to essentially say in their own way.
Right.
You know what I mean? And all of it's kind of up in, for interpretation, but a lot of these new things that are coming out, people are getting smarter. People are realizing that you can't do high intensity shit every day. You're going to burn out. Yep. You can't, just like if you want to be well-rounded in your fitness, you can't do low intensity shit every day.
No,
you know what I mean? And it all goes, and everybody's essentially like trying to reach for the same definition, I think. And I think, what happens is we get separated into different blocks rather than looking at, hey, what's the newest thing? What's the best thing? What's the research that we can constantly improve on? And I think what you're saying that OPEX does a good job of is it doesn't limit anything. You know what I mean? A lot of people will read, the CrossFit definition, or they'll read Ninja Warrior stuff or powerlifting or Olympic weightlifting, and these are the strict rules that we follow. Yeah. But I think essentially it has to be it has to be ever evolving. It has to be continuing to grow. Like I'm doing yoga teacher training right now because I'm trying to, I want to learn new shit, man. I want to be able to incorporate everything because that's where the longevity comes in. So all these different things I think are essentially like trying in their own way to say the same thing, but along the way, people interpret things differently and it just gets lost. And then you get stuck in these patterns that you're talking about. So if you're aware of that, how can you break how can you break those patterns? You know what I mean? And I think the model that you're talking about that you guys have allows for just the more, allows for or promotes up front or says in a better way, however you want to take this, to be open-minded about what's actually going to work for the individual, because everybody has their own individual need. Just like one guy might be a super athlete and all he eats is McDonald's. Another guy might be a super athlete, but he can't eat McDonald's or whatever it is. You know what I mean? The nutrition has to be, everything has to be individualized. And so if you're not constantly accepting new ways of thought or new perspectives or new trainings or educations or researches, whatever it is, then you're just going to get lost.
Yeah. The other, it comes back to alignment, right? It's like value, alignment, and making sure that those things are taken care of with each person. And then like from there you can write the book, and so if you can take someone and you can figure out the priority line and you can figure out exactly what they want, then why do we need to direct people down exactly one concise cut way? Because it's going to be ever changing, and like that's just a fact of life. You're going to get older, right?
Your needs are going to change.
Your body's going to change, exactly, and your needs are going to change along the way. So, it's also like it's non-related and related. A lot of times, aside from just the I'm afraid to go work out by myself thing that it's which I think people are realizing isn't quite the case anymore. But additionally, it's like I've heard this too, like people coming in like those guys train competitors. You know what I mean? Like it's like OPEX is like purely a competitor facility. The cold truth of it is that the majority of who we train will never compete in anything.
Sure. Well, like that example gets drawn all the time, or that line gets drawn all the time because, like if you look at people who are in the UFC, those guys are like the 1% of people who do MMA. You know what I mean? But you're still training people in this MMA format in which they could compete if they wanted to. You know what I mean? But like you don't only train competitors. There's different facets to things. You can't limit things. And I think that's where the differentiation that CrossFit I think struggles to draw is what's a competitor who's trying to be at the CrossFit Games and like perform in the open and stuff like that, and what's the person who's trying to reduce their risk of cardiovascular disease, because it's a lot of it's the same style of programming for all of it essentially.
And I mean, listen, like there's so many messages get mixed, and that's just what it is. And I think that one thing that we have going, and I mean I'll just speak for our facility and our gym, we keep a consistent message about what it exactly is that we're trying to accomplish. And with that comes a lot of authenticity. So, listen, we're here to help people grow, and we're here to help people, achieve their goals. Or you may not even have like a goal. You just might want to be fit. We're here to help you get aligned with that, desire to live that lifestyle. Unfortunately, because we're talking about it, the CrossFit stuff, and it has for years. I mean, this is just how it kind of goes. The way that things get marketed sometimes is that, again, you've got this one side, which is like fit for life, and like the caveman example, and the, person tries it and they, they're hanging from a helicopter in their mind. They're,
sure.
Because they do CrossFit, it's like they're a warrior of sorts that can fight, whatever. Anyway, so there's that whole side, and then like, there's so much media and content developed around, the Matt Frasers of the world and what these guys are doing. Like, what are they doing?
Sure.
But then at the median of all of that,
I think if you look at it like the NBA,
on a lot of levels, CrossFit is still trying to say like, just do the workout of the day on CrossFit.com, and you're gonna get to the CrossFit day.
Yeah, that's not how it works, man.
It's this big ironic piece because when you look top to bottom, right? And they're like, well, real CrossFit isn't the CrossFit Games. Just go to a gym. That's CrossFit. Okay, cool. Those people are doing great things, and there's a lot of great coaches out there that are doing great things for those people. But then on the other side, like I mentioned before, it's like every time anything CrossFit Games happens, they're like, this is really CrossFit over here. But man, how many of your top level CrossFit athletes that are at the CrossFit Games have a coach? How many of them?
I think all of them have coaches now.
Program year round, all of them.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
It's just funny. You know what I mean? Like that part to me is ironic.
It just gets blurred.
Everybody's sitting in the passenger seat like it's not that way. You know what I mean? Like, so if your desire as an average Joe CrossFitter is to elevate your game and whatever, I mean, people go out and they find Invictus programming, they find, what's Rich doing, and they find whatever it is, and it's just like, you took a half step into individualization.
Well, if you think about it, what does anybody tell you?
Yourself a coach.
Yeah. Well, what does anybody tell you? Oh, you want to compete? Okay. What are your weaknesses? Mm-hmm. And then you cater it to make your weaknesses your strengths is a big thing. Right. Which is but individualized. It's individual
for the non-competitor.
Yeah.
You arguably need a coach more than anyone else. Because
as a competitor.
As a non-competitor.
Oh, as a non-competitor. Okay.
Yeah, because for you, there are so many factors at hand in which a coach and a guiding principles from someone can so greatly affect your life. So, like, if the number one thing, man, I really struggle with my nutrition.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dig a little deeper and let's figure out what the real priorities are. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, man, people come in and they have, I said this in the beginning of the conversation, it's like a whole nother conversation, but like to ask someone what their priorities are,
Yeah.
You can probably think immediately in your head what like the first couple that would come to your mind are, right? But in truth, as we dig into that a little bit, if we're in agreement that your actions dictate priorities, then what are your real priorities?
So, yeah.
What you spend the most time doing.
Asking, okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? So then somebody comes in and they're like, it's New Year's, I'm making weight loss my number one priority, right? But based on your actions, that's not going to line up. Uh-huh. So here's the deal. You don't actually care as much as you say you do about that, and that's okay. That's fine. No one's judging you.
Yeah.
But what do you care the most about? Where does that fall in your list of priorities and what you care about and what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Let's get you aligned there. Let's get you balanced there.
Work from that place.
Let's actually get some success built around that concept, because otherwise you're going to set yourself up to let yourself down, period. Mm-hmm. And there's not a person on earth that can help you with that other than
yourself.
The coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Who's going to be able to see through that and identify it day one.
Yeah. I think that speaks to like life coaching. And that's part of the OPEX stuff. Is life coach is a huge part.
And everybody questions that. What does
that
mean?
Yeah.
That's what it means, because we start there. You don't do a lick of fitness until we figure that out.
Yeah. People who I have life coached or get in the conversation with, or like here's a perfect example. I go to a rehab, a drug and alcohol rehab, and I teach fitness classes. Yep. Fitness in itself, the physical activity, has to be a part of personal growth. It's not going to work. Yep. But what is going to create the most value and direction in the outlet, in the world of personal growth? What's going to create the most value and direction in regards to your fitness or your physical health, like the realm of physical health? You know what I mean? It has to be intrinsically motivated and centered around a deeper purpose.
Yep. 100%.
And the only way, a lot of times people are not able to do that on their own. So the people who I'm training at this rehab and stuff, 99% of my conversation with them is, where are you going after this? What are you doing? Do you have this? What are you doing that? Like I had a guy who I was talked to for a good 30, 40 minutes about how he's in rehab now and he's got a daughter on the way. And it's it's some real deep shit, man.
Yep.
And I believe that guy's going to make a change. Yep. Because it's centered around a real purpose. Yep. And it's centered around a real meaningful factor that's going to drive you or create leverage within you to get the shit done. Now, the guy at a rehab, you have counselors. You have people who are asking you these questions, pushing you to dig through your own bullshit and your thoughts and excuses and all that kind of stuff to find these deeper meanings. So having an outside perspective and why I love to do these podcasts and talk to so many different people is because, you know, when you hear all these different angles of thought and then I apply it to myself, I just, you know, it teaches me about me hearing from somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean,
and you have somebody who's willing to ask you the questions that you're not going to ask yourself. One of the things, like a good friend, or people will say, you know, my best friend is the person who will tell me that I'm being an asshole,
yep.
or that kind of thing. You know, someone who will genuinely ask you the hard questions, take you to those deep spots in your mind, and take you to those things that, you know, what are you really going after? What are you really looking for?
Yeah, and it requires a good bit of vulnerability from people.
From both sides. As a coach, too, I think it requires coach, both. Right?
Yeah, you have to have an ability to establish trust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
rapport,
that's a great part, right? Like, everything is, you know, we sort of use this as like a core value, but it's like, you know, we're non-judgmental, period, right? So we want people to understand that, you know, we need to hear those things. We need to ask some of those tough questions. Maybe not on day one, you know, but we're going to get to it somewhere along the journey.
Well, as you get to know each other and
Yeah. And so some of that is, you know, another principle is just like ask why 5 times. You know, you can get down to it. And a lot of times people will sort of unveil their, which is, this is the root of basically growth for all of us, which is like the fears that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so when you start to unveil some of the fears that people have, and they're willing to kind of put those things on the table, there's so much you can accomplish from the life coaching element, which is a day-to-day item with being an OPEX coach. That's it, right? People come in, we're talking about their programming, we're talking about how they feel, we're talking about their life and their lifestyle, and, you know, what the factors are, and if we need to help them with anything or change anything. And everybody looks at that and they think it's like a big drum circle, you know, where we're sitting in a room and, you know, asking people about their feelings.
Sure.
But
it's simple conversation. It happens, you know, those types of conversations come about like out of nowhere.
Yep.
You know, obviously you set up time with a client and you talk to them and stuff like that, but, you know, real change, people have aha moments all throughout the day, but those aha moments come about because you are building that off of, you know, support.
We're built as coaches off of personal fulfillment and sustainability around that. So we're happy because we get to be professional coaches who do this for our full-time profession. Yeah. And we can hang our hats at the end of the day on what we're able to provide for people, and it's legitimate and it's sustainable. At the same time, we gain a lot of fulfillment out of the actual action that we get to put into place with how we coach individuals. I tell people all the time when we work with, you know, fitness is the easy part. You know, when you get down to it, like creating fitness program, if we can get some consistency and some, you know, some real value built around what you're here to do, that part's going to take care of itself. You know, we got to get through a couple of these other pieces, break down some walls a little bit, and help you to understand what it is that you're really looking for as you go, and make, you know, for a lot of people, look, we work with a lot of CrossFitters coming from the group model and coming into ID.
You have some people who compete in CrossFit.
Oh, yeah. We train a ton of CrossFitters for sure.
Yeah.
It's not all that we train.
Sure.
But some of which are non-competitive and have shifted their training style altogether because we've been able to extract value around what they really wanted, and we remove them from that atmosphere, period, right? So it's like, again, go back to that handstand push-up example I was talking about. Like, we can redirect some of that stuff to make that person understand, like, oh, hey, you know what? There's a whole lot of fitness components that, like, I can build upon just with like some basic like revisitation of movement and what is functional, as you've said a million times. And I don't need to do it this way or that way, and that's fine. Some people, they have, you know, every bit of ability and they can continue kind of along that path, maybe in a I say like a more intelligent way, only because we can reach them individually, and there's a plan in place day to day that's built around not only, you know, giving them a great service, but providing them with like a program that keeps them healthy and has some longevity in it. Within that, though, we talk about that, right? We're talking about a greater deal of intensity and you know, volume or accumulation. Like, there's going to come a tipping point for that person. So our coaches and staff can kind of manage that, which is what keeps people on their feet a lot longer. And, you know, how many people I can tell you say to us on a daily basis, man, I can't tell you how great I feel. I just haven't felt this great in so long. And it's because you're in that high intensity environment regularly, and you're not realizing the wear and tear that's happening to you, right, on many levels. And so we take people out of that setting, we realign their value back to what it is we're trying to accomplish, and we work with them. And again, it's like the day-to-day has a lot to do with the life coaching piece, and that's probably one of the most fulfilling parts of our profession as coaches, because we know that we're making a real change, a real impact on these people's lives, and we get to spend time with them, rather than, and again, like, this is no stat, but it's like, to me, it felt at the end, before I led the group model, it felt like such a show. You know what I mean? Like, you feel like you're herding cats. You feel like it's dog and pony show all the time.
Well, that's why I say I like the smaller gym, too.
Right.
That's why I love that.
100% right. Like, I remember that number being like 30, 40, and then things like really getting.
And then it kind of, that's where,
And what sucks is, like, again, no fault of it, but it's the model, is it comes down to triage. So it comes down to who needs the most help right now. And so you've got this massive group class, and, you know, big gyms that outgrow themselves, right, in a hurry. And they got great coaches on staff, and a great facility even. But you have 30
it's just
people,
the sheer fact. It's hard. It's hard to get to that
class,
many people.
Right. And you have X amount of coaches, and 3 of those people are brand new. What can you do, right? You have to go spend the time with the new people, and you sort of say, like, well, you guys know what you're doing, right? So and you lean on that tribal effect, but at the end of the day, those people need that coaching too, right? And they get lost in the mix, and you might maybe get 30 seconds with each individual if you're really, really good. If you're really good, you'll get 30 seconds of something that resonates with those people that says, you know what, I can't fucking wait to come back here tomorrow. Right? Otherwise, it's like,
people just get lost in the shuffle.
What the hell am I doing here? Oh, well, you know, this is my people.
Whatever.
Okay,
I'm here.
What are you getting?
Right?
So, no, I think you're 100% right. It's a great thing that we talk about. You know, I think we talk pretty regularly, but, you know, making it your own and understanding these principles along the way. And I'm not here to tell you that there's one right way over another right way or whatever, but
well, I think the right way, and what we're kind of talking about here, is the right way to do things, and this is the right fucking way, is to not marry yourself to one thing. The right way to go about it is to always be willing to explore. And in doing so, you develop things like, you know, connecting life coaching with personal training, with, you know, or individualized training, and you know, nutrition. You find these new avenues to create great change in people, and that's how you got to do it, man. You can't put any certain limit on, you know, what you're willing to offer people in our field, in the field of, you know, the fitness industry, we'll call it.
I think you know, the more and more this thing morphs, and you know, I see it now, but like, you're gonna see group facilities starting to generate around trying to meet the individual because they're gonna have to. You know? And
people are getting smarter too. You know what I mean? People are getting very educated.
You see the
which is good.
Points of group fitness dropping. And you see, because everyone is offering a very similar thing. So how do you separate yourself? Period. You know, and the answers are either bring in 30 services, like bring in yoga and bring in this and bring in that. Now we have cycling. Create like an LA Fitness and that. That's great. You know what I mean? That's a movement, and to each their own. Again, not wrong. But the way that I think that I've seen it was, what's going to last, you know what I mean? What's going to last is quality and ability to meet individuals where they are today, and provide the framework and the structure as using fitness as the medium to take them where they're going tomorrow. You know, and that's a universal principle. You know, like,
absolutely.
That's not going to die. So if you don't have that established, that culture established to some degree inside of your facility, right, where people have the relationship with you on an individual level, then I think, regardless of your growth, I think you're dying. You know,
it has to be wrapped into something deeper. I'm doing this yoga teacher training, and along your point is, dude, probably 80% of the training is personal growth work. We've maybe spent, if you know, I've done probably, we'll call it 50 hours right now. And if we've spent 10 of those hours talking about like anatomy and how things, you know, like actual like positioning of stuff, that's a lot. The majority of it comes from, like, personal growth and that sort of thing. And that's one of the things I love about yoga. And I'm loving this training because I'm learning so much about myself, and it makes everything else that I'm doing that much more valuable.
Yeah.
Which is great.
I think for us, it's, again, I partially anticipated kind of the premise of the conversation being around, ultimately CrossFit, where I started, and sort of what the differences are with OPEX and what we can offer based on those two things. And so, from my end to look at this thing now, I try to keep a 100-yard view on everything. Is I really feel like with our business is that we're creating something that we're going to be able to build on, and we're doing leaving a lot of positive impact within our clientele, and starting to reach out into the community and develop some partnerships. And that's why coming on here is fantastic.
Yeah.
And, just trying to be able to spread the word a little bit and create some awareness. And for once, like I said, I mean, we've been open since January of 17, and I tell my staff the other day, like, I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah.
And, so much of that has to do with the personal growth aspect that, not only we're trying to implement with our clients, but like you said, doing these talks. I mean, I get to do, 25, 30 monthly consults with individuals where we're reflecting on their progress or growth over the last 4 weeks, and we're refining their process, or we're looking at maybe what changes we can make in the program, or we're celebrating the success that they've had, or whatever it is. And so through those conversations, I get to have a lot of those same type of experiences, right? Figuring out, okay, great, what worked for this person? Do I need to have a different angle to break through to this person in terms of what I'm trying to get across and help them grow? And obviously through that, we grow as individuals, like you're talking about. And I'm trying to pass that type of stuff along to, my team of coaches and the great staff that we have, and make this thing into something bigger, and I don't quite have the exact
the answer.
Yeah, the answer, and I don't even know that there is one, right? It's like chasing.
But you're looking for it.
Yeah. Always.
You know what I mean?
Always.
And that's the key.
And it will evolve, and over time, I have now at a point where I reflect and I look back and I'm saying, okay, here's where I am, kind of along the way in this thing as a career, and all these positions that I've had at one point or another are now part of the infrastructure of my business. And I'm really fortunate to be able to have put these really awesome people in place who share the vision and who are driven by, the same type of alignment. And so you said, if you're chasing money, like, that's going to burn out, or you're chasing whatever, these guys are on point with exactly what we're trying to do. And so because of that, we grow as individuals and we grow together, and we're trying to, build on top of that as we go. And I think we got a really great thing going. So, yeah, man.
I dig it, man. I think that this is like this mindset of creating individualized programming, creating these deep, meaningful relationships. This intertwines a lot with why I wanted to start this podcast. I think one of the things that's my goal with this is trying to talk to as many different types of people and trying to draw parallels, kind of like what we're doing here, draw abilities and parallels and lines and things that we can, just create similarity, and realize that a lot of us are saying a lot of the same things. And a lot of us, if we're not saying something, can listen and hear from somebody else, something that we might need to learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's a lot of like what you guys are doing. And I think a lot of people, especially in fitness, since that's what we've been talking about, need to stay open and need to realize that there's a lot of great different approaches of thought out there. And I think what OPEX is doing is really great as far as being on the forefront of intertwining a more, holistic approach to a person's life and to a person's individuality.
Yeah.
Right?
There's your bridging the gap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's it.
We're doing it.
Yeah. Fuck
if
yeah.
That answers your question.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're trying to anyway.
Yeah.
So, man, like I said, I think this type of stuff's great. It's a great opportunity. I believe in what Movement 33 is trying to do, and I'm just happy to have come on today and do it again sometime in the future, man.
Absolutely, dude. What's the ending thought, the last word?
Ending thought. Well, ending thought, I would say...
Include your Instagram and your information in this thought.
So, my personal Instagram as a coach is at Cody Leffler, CodyLoeffler. Usually trying to intertwine my personal accounts with the business and a little bit of my life and lifestyle. You can follow us also, on Facebook, OPEX Upper Main Line, on Instagram at OPEX, OPEX Upper Main Line. And yeah, I mean, as a closing thought, like you'll see, it's very, very prevalent within the branding, but our message and kind of our mantra, if you will, is to go forth. And it's a big part of our story and our backbone. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be the most talented. You don't have to be healthy today. But if you're willing to commit to the journey and you're willing to be vulnerable and you're willing to challenge yourself, and more than anything, you're willing to work, what you can achieve is limitless, and there's no ceiling to that. So we try to abide by the general phrase "go forth" because it sort of encompasses the ability of each individual to align with their vision and chase it, relentlessly.
Yeah.
And so that's a big piece of what we do. And furthermore, what I tell a lot of people, I tell every client we have, is maybe the best piece of advice I've received as well. Know why you do what you do. And that's it.
I love it.
Do what you do.
Yeah.
Everything else will take care of itself.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I love it, man. Dude, Cody will definitely be back on the podcast. This was fucking awesome, man. I love having these conversations. So, check them out. OPEX Upper Main Line. Dude, they kick ass over there. I'm telling you, man, it's a great spot. Podcast for the people, www.movement33.com. My information is on there. If you want to be on the podcast, message me. Let me know. All right, we'll get everybody on. So thank you very much. Thank you, Cody.
Thanks, man.
And we'll see you guys next time.